So the way the day panned out was it was structured very well. I made sure everything was ready so that when we got up there we could just start filming and it would be quick, snappy, and we could just get it all done. I arranged for everybody to meet at the location around 6 PM because I wanted it to be quite dark so that all the lights that we were casting in around like the later shots would be a lot more potent due to the room being a lot darker. I basically wanted everyone to get there around 6 PM, obviously because it starts to get darker later in the evening due to the summer changing the clocks going forward, everything like that. So everyone got there around 6 PM apart from Joe, which was my lighting, that was my extra help for the crew. Me, Tom and Brooke all got to the location at the same time, as well as Hayley, the makeup artist. It was kind of good because we all started setting up. I sort of briefed Hayley, Tom and Brooke on what the structure of the video was. I also gave Hayley some examples of how I wanted the VFX done on Tom, so like more like torture-esque, beaten and like very bloody and like damaged, all that bruised skin, cuts on the lips and the nose, stuff like that. I sort of made it so Tom was getting his makeup done while I was running Brooke through the structure of the sequence, all of her shots, so she knew what to expect when coming to the sequence. By the time I had sort of like given Brooke a rundown of everything that needs to happen, Joe had turned up. So while Tom was getting his makeup done, Joe helped me to get everything prepped, such as the lighting, block out all of excessive light that was spilling in from the doorway as it was still bright when we started filming. We attached some some dark black card to the door that I brought earlier in the day. It was sort of like attached to the door, like we taped it together to stop just light spill coming in so that the beams were very focused, which was it was a lot better because then it stopped like overspill of light. We just wanted a direct beam, as you'll see in a second. So we just basically filmed all of Brooke's shots while Tom was getting all of his makeup done. So we were very productive in that sense, as we wasn't just waiting for him to get his makeup done and then filming, and then Tom had to wait for a while. So we just sort of got as many scenes as we could done in that time while Tom was getting everything finished. So if we quickly shoot over to our screen here, where I've got a little breakdown for you guys of how everything happened and how I filmed every shot. So if we start with the first shot here, this scene was quite hard to film. It took quite a lot of takes because I wanted to make sure that the take was just perfect, you know. So if you look here, as the camera pans in, I sort of pull focus from here, and then you also pull focus as you come down, as she walks down into the scene, and the focus sort of sits around this area on the screen here, as obviously it's all like blurry in the background, and we did that so it was like a silhouette, so you couldn't see her face, and the light is quite bright behind her, and you can see like the light beams spilling in. You can see it a lot more as the scene goes on, like behind her here, like all the light spilling in. It looks quite cool. We used a fog machine to make the light beams a lot more potent. So as she walks through, it sort of bounces off the doors and the corners. It makes it look a lot more like cinematic and like spooky. We added like a bluish gel. As she gets closer, we added sort of a bluish gel to the light. Oh, we've gone too far. Added a bluish gel to the light, so it was like a nice blue beam, and then when you colour grade, you could add like a green tint to everything else, so it looks quite nice. And as you can see here, the focus is sort of like there, and then it sort of spills forward a little bit as she walks past. But as she gets closer to the camera, you can see the focus starts to pull. I sort of just wanted to make it so that, as you can see in the back, it's all blurry, so we just sort of pull focus. It was quite easy to make it so you just had to sort of shift on and off and focus on a certain point, so when she gets through, you can sort of, if you see the camera goes to one side, it sort of like rocks to the left. I did that because I wanted to just sort of add a bit of motion as we pull focus, so it sort of she has time to walk past us, as well as we could show the background and the reflections of the light. It took quite a few takes because the way that I pulled focus, I sort of had the camera in between my knees and I was shifting left and right using my hips and my knees. So it was like a slow sort of tilt left, and it was very stabilised. I had to lean on Joe, so I had Joe to my left and I had to lean against him while I was panning and also put in focus at the same time. was quite a lot of work. My knees were on fire by the end of it. It was extremely painful. However, we got the shot, so you know, it kind of works out. But we had to count from 1 to 10 each time. So by the time she got to the camera, that would be the 10th step, so that I could be in position by the time she got there, and the scene would just flow very well. We also made it so that it starts panning when the door opens. So as she comes along, the door opens as I start panning. As you can see, the camera moves. I wanted it to be a very sleek shot, just like quite nice and quite just visually pleasing. You know, it was a long shot to get. It took like an hour and a half to film, because obviously the fog dies down, so we had to keep topping up the fog up in order for the light beams to come through. And then we also had to make sure the light was the right setting. Sometimes it was too bright for the shot, so we did a lot of like over and over again to make sure the shot was right. But apart from that, we got all the stuff, and it took quite a few times. However, you know, we made it happen, so it's not too bad. So if you move on to the second shot here, this one was probably the hardest shot to film, mainly because of the way the lights were positioned, and also how she wanted to step through the doorway. We had a count to like, so as it sort of comes around into here, this was the 10th step again. She would count 10 and I'd make sure to pull through. But as you can see, the focus is on the background at the moment. As she walks through, I have to pull focus. There you go. So as you can see, the corner right here comes into focus as she steps forward. So I sort of pulled focus all the way from here to here, and she sort of walked in. Obviously she keeps walking. I pulled focus from, where is it? So as you can see, she steps in first, that shoe is in focus, and then I also had to pull focus from there. So pulling from one shoe to the other shoe is quite hard. I had Joe up here with a light beam casting down, and also, I don't know if you can see it, let me rewind back a little bit. There's a radiator pipe there, and there's a radiator obviously connected to it, and we stuck a little magnetic gel to the radiator so that we cast down, so we have 2 points of lighting. So it took a few takes because we had to make sure the light was casting like perfectly, and sometimes it wasn't. Sometimes she would step a little bit too far forward, sometimes she would step a little too far back, and it would just cause a lot of like, it just wouldn't look good, if that makes sense. Like a lot of the takes, this is the best take out of all of them, it wouldn't look too good if she was too far forward. And then we also, she rolled her ankle, where is it? She rolled her ankle here, that little ankle roll right there. That was initially an accident. She had like quite a stiff ankle, and you could hear it click as she was walking. She was like, oh, hold on guys, let me just quickly click my ankle so I'm a bit more comfortable. And I sort of liked the way she stopped and then rolled her ankle. It made it look very like she was giddy and excited. It gave the character a bit more of expression, because obviously you don't see her face, you don't hear her talk or anything like that, so the feet movement was quite a good feature to sort of just portray her character a lot more. So that took quite a few times to get right, but I mean, you know, it is what it is. And what I find quite funny about this scene is, obviously you can't see, but we had Tom had finished his prosthetics by this point, and we had him in the back, and he was sitting with a little box light and a blue gel in front, to obviously, because you can see it's quite blue, I just colour graded the top and kept that blue. And he sat with a blue gel behind, and he was fanning the fog to make sure it was all misty, so the light had like a bit more atmosphere, and the scene was a bit more like dingy. And he was sat there for about at least half an hour while we got this shot. It took a very long time. And we was originally going to light these rooms with individual lights to make it look like there was other people in this room, but I felt as if it didn't really like match the storyline, because why would you keep 3 victims in the same room? They're more likely to escape compared to one, and I wanted the killer to come across as quite smart and intelligent, and that would sort of make her not as smart, because it's more likely they're going to escape and you're going to get caught. So yeah, it was quite difficult to get that with the, sort of like rolling. We did a lot of different takes, but this is my favourite obviously because it's in the final cut. This scene right here is one of my favourites. It's mainly because of how the lighting works. So it may not look like it, but there are 3 different points of lighting throughout this whole scene. So the first point of lighting is down in this corner, and it's casting against this radiator onto this wall. There's another point of lighting on the radiator that's still there. We just turned it a little bit more blue, so that was 1 shade, 2 shade, and the other shade is when the door opens. I wanted to have like a separate sort of gradient into the final door opening scene. So we obviously stuck it to the thing, and then the way we filmed it was we wanted to be very we wanted to keep a lot of the continuity throughout the scene. So we had her roll her ankle, as you can see there, she's lifting her feet up. If we go a little bit closer, you should be able to see the foot roll right there. So that's a little foot roll there. I made her just do it a few times. This scene was quite quick to film as it was only one motion. We sort of, I basically put the camera between my legs and I hunched over and I leant forward into it, so it was like a nice slow zoom. It added like a warp stabilizer effect, so it was quite smooth as she was going through. And obviously, as you can see, the camera moves forward as she, a slight little movement forward, and she rocks back and forward as she pushes the door open. And you can sort of see the light there, as obviously it gets a lot more brighter. But that scene was quite nice to film because I love the glare of the light on the suitcase. It makes it seem very clinicky and like very like dingy and dark. It took a few like takes, but to be honest, it was quite easy. We did like one of we pulled back, and then like, we just did different angles and different movements for the shot. But that was my final outcome. And then this shot wasn't really supposed to be in. It wasn't in the original storyboard. We thought, why don't we sort of like give it a bit more character and a bit of like a teaser to who she is, because as you can see, she's got like long wavy hair. You can see a bit of her neck. You can tell it's a female at this point. You could anyway, because obviously the silhouette at the start. But it sort of like shows, you never see her face, but you like get glimpses of her. You get a full body and like just a silhouette, and it just adds to that. Like, who is this character? Why is she like this? Do you know what I mean? Adds to the mystery, and I think it's quite cool. I also really like how the lighting is very consistent. It took a long time to get the lighting right, but as you can see, like that shadow on the coat, like right here, it if you keep your eye on that screen, the shadow just goes across, and the continuity is so nice because I spent such a long time getting the lighting right. I had Tom in this room, so behind this door here, like it would carry on. He had like a box light again with a blue gel in front of it, and he stood there. So every single time she would open the door, the light would beam in. Obviously, because it was dark by this point, there was no like actual like lighting to come through, so we had to like fake it. And she had to keep pushing this door open over and over again because it kept sticking every time that she tried to open the door. So we had to just pull the door to a little bit more and make it so it would stick a little bit. And if you can see here, she sort of forces her way into the door. She sort of rocks into it right there because it's so hard to open every single time. So it made it quite hard for her to open the door. But we got there eventually, you know, it looks quite good. This is my favourite scene out of all of it. I'll break it down quickly for you. So the lighting is my favourite, mainly because of how intricate it is. There's a light above Tom. I'll put a picture on the screen right now for you so you can see what I'm talking about. The way it has like the little gimbal arm, and then the light coming down is from a light outside. I had to go out with like an extended arm and stick it to, and like sort of lean against the fence. I don't have a picture of it unfortunately, but like sort of lean it against the fence, and then the light would beam in through this like top window that was in the photo just shown, and it would create this like little moonlight effect on the back, and then having the little the light that flickers was quite cool as well. It just added like a nice dramatic effect. We added water on the floor using this like Evian bottle that we had, and it just sort of like went all over the floor, and we had to like sort of mop some up so it was like a bit more controlled. We put the showers on as well because it was a functioning shower room, just make the atmosphere a little bit more steamy, and like we put a bit of fog in there as well just to make the lights a bit more potent. We also marked out on the floor because as you can see when she walks in, the position's so perfect because you can still see Tom as well as when she does her little foot roll. It's like all in scene, so it's like just shows like who she is as a person and how she operates. It's really cool. We had to mark out on the floor so that you could still see Tom when she's doing a little foot roll, just so that it all looks quite professional. We also marked out here, as you can see where it's dry, where she kept putting the suitcase down. She kept putting it down in the wrong spot, so she would block Tom every single time she would lean forward, so we had to sort of mark that out as well. And then this was quite funny because she really struggled to open these locks, and every time she would flip that open it would flap back down, so it was really hard to like it was like there was loads of shots over and over where it just kept flipping up and flipping down, so that took quite a while to film, but eventually we got there. And then we wanted it to sort of be like very sadistic and like excited, the lead up to the final hit, or like the climax. So we got her to spin the hammer a few times, but she kept dropping the hammer due to like her false nails. So it was quite funny. She just kept dropping it over and over again. And the way we got this shot is actually quite cool because the camera's balanced on a Radox shampoo bottle. And like, obviously, because we wanted it in line with the floor, we couldn't have it against the floor because we wouldn't be able to see Tom on the lighting or anything. So we had to sort of put it in place for it to like sort of adjust out. I'll put a photo on that of the screen now. And then if I go a little bit further, the walk up was like sort of, we wanted to walk around then stop. So as you can see here, this didn't really take too long. We just wanted to like have a few different shots to pick from. Of her swinging the hammer, like she did this quite easily, which was it took a lot of pressure off of us. And then obviously the climax where she picks it up and hits the hammer, that was all one take. We didn't really get her to do the last thing until we got all of the walk-in moments to be like very fresh, so that was her first time doing it. She nailed it perfectly. And then yeah, that's basically the whole production shot. We just sort of cleaned up afterwards. I got all of the lights in and stuff. What was quite funny is it was raining, so I had to like tie a plastic apron to the top of the light so it wouldn't get wet. So I had to take all of that down, make sure everything was clean because I wanted to be respectful. There was this little fire detector, or smoke detector, that we had to take down due to the fog machine. So we had to stick that back onto the ceiling, just make sure we left everything as we found it. And then yeah, that was the production day. It was quite easy, to be honest. We got everything filmed and everything finished quite easily. It was all structured quite well, so all the planning really came into clutch with this project. I really enjoyed filming it, and I really hope you enjoyed this little breakdown. It's something different, you know, compared to having just like reading, writing and images. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed the breakdown, and yeah, see you later.